Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman. What's going on, guys? It is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL edition. This is our conference championship week episode. With us this week are the same group of individuals that have been joining us the past couple weeks. We've got Mr. John Taxis here, who has labeled himself still a Cowboys fan. Scott Head Ninja and the Carter. So we've got all these guys back in action here to cover all of the picks from last week, make some selections for conference championship weekend, and talk some league news. So before we get started here, last week we did kick it off with some NCAA breaking news. Mr. Jake, do you have anything here for us this time around?
Yeah. So if we're really going to get into it, we have an announcement from the ACC that Cal will be traveling to Wake Forest on a Friday night in November to play, in case anyone cares about that. Real news, though, tomorrow the ACC schedule does come out for real, the full slate of the ACC schedule. So that will be something to look forward to as the Noles will continue to go undefeated next season also. And be more to talk about next year. Carter, I know you're going to have some dispute with that, and also Scott, but we'll have that conversation in a few months.
Yeah, there you go. Get them riled up, and so you just can't talk about it.
Coming into Indiana in November.
We'll talk about it in a year.
Yeah, here, let me shit talk real quick and then move on before you have a chance to respond. Perfect.
We don't need to hear any remarks. Last time we went there, me and Carter were at the game and we lost by, I think, 40. But I made some good money that night, so it was all right.
There you go. All right. Well, now that we've gone past that extremely breaking news here, let's jump into last week's pick results. I went 2-2. Jake went 3-1. He had himself a good weekend. Taxis and Scott both went 2-2, and the Carter went 1-3. We're all performing pretty well here. Myself, Jake, and Carter are all sitting at 5-5 for the playoffs. Scott's sitting at 4-6, just a game back, and Taxis is currently in the lead at 6-4. So we'll continue to track the picks here against the spread as we move into Super Bowl weekend. Before we go into a recap of last week's games, let's talk about some league news. There's a lot moving right now in terms of head coaching positions, starting with the Los Angeles Chargers. It has not been broken as we're speaking right now, but LA and Jim Harbaugh are in talks right now, negotiations to potentially make him the head coach. Nothing has come out of that yet, but Harbaugh is in LA at the moment for that interview. They have also interviewed Mike Vrabel, Dan Quinn, Ben Johnson, and Aaron Glenn. Those guys have all gone through head coaching interviews with the Chargers. They did also interview Bills Director of Player Personnel, Terrence Gray, for their GM position. Both the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders have had a second interview with Texans OC Bobby Slowick. They are looking at two other interviews as well with Bill Belichick. Jim Harbaugh is also in that mix, but it sounds like he's probably headed to LA. The Lions, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn have also interviewed for the Falcons position, as has Bill's interim OC Joe Brady. The Commanders have interviewed Aaron Glenn for their head coaching role. Chicago has hired former Seahawks OC Shane Waldron to their new position as OC. The Raiders have formally named Antonio Pierce as their next head coach. I think that's something that we kind of saw coming. They are also expected to hire former Chargers GM Tom Telesco as their new GM. They are interviewing Bears OC Luke Getsy and former Browns OC Alex Van Pelt for the OC vacancy. Mike Tomlin is expected to return as the Steelers head coach and will look to outside staff to fill the OC vacancy. The Giants have requested to interview with Bills linebackers coach Bobby Boddick for their DC position. They also hired Aaron Wellman as executive director of player performance and Joel Thomas as their running backs coach. The Philadelphia Eagles announced that both Brian Johnson, their OC, and DC Sean Desai are out, but signs are pointing to Nick Sirianni staying with the organization. They have a news conference scheduled for tomorrow. The Tennessee Titans have hired former Bengals OC Brian Callahan as their next head coach. The New England Patriots have announced the promotion of Gerard Mayo to their head coaching position, replacing Bill Belichick. They have also interviewed Broncos DB coach Christian Parker for the DC position, as well as Saints linebacker coach Michael Hodges. They've also interviewed Rams assistant special teams coach Jeremy Springer for the special teams coaching position. The Panthers have kept their GM search in-house, promoting Dan Morgan, a former Panthers player, as the new GM and president of football operations, after the Lions COO Mike Disner withdrew his name from the search and announced that he will be staying with Detroit. They've also interviewed Rams DC Raheem Morris, Dolphins OC Frank Smith, Cowboys DC Dan Quinn, and Lions OC Ben Johnson for the head coaching position. So a lot of interviews going on there. Jacksonville Jaguars have hired ex-Falcons DC Ryan Nielsen for the same role. The Detroit Lions have signed tight end Zach Ertz to their practice squad with a chance to be elevated to the 53-man roster ahead of the NFC Championship game after losing Brock White. Cleveland Browns GM has announced that they are interested in retaining Joe Flacco in 2024. The same can be said for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and resurrected QB Baker Mayfield, who Ian Rappaport is reporting on Sunday could result in a long-term deal for Baker Mayfield. The Cleveland Browns have also decided to make some coaching changes. They have fired running back coach Stump Mitchell, and tight end coach TC McCartney, and hired former Alabama OC Tommy Reese as their new tight end coach. The NFL Scouting Combine will remain in Indianapolis through at least 2025, making it more than 3 decades that the Combine has been held in Circle City. Titans DL coach Terrell Williams and Jets DC Jeff Ulbrich are expected to lead the coaching staffs in the 2024 Senior Bowl. New Orleans Saints have decided to retain head coach Dennis Allen. They did fire Pete Carmichael, who's been the OC there for 15 years. They have, as well as senior offensive assistant Bob Bicknell and wide receiver coach Cody Burns. So some movement there. The Saints did interview QB coach from the Bengals, Dan Pitcher, for the OC role. And lastly here, we've got the Seattle Seahawks handing over full authority for both the team's coaching staff and all player personnel matters to GM John Schneider. They have interviewed Dan Quinn, Giants OC Mike Kafka, and Lions OC Ben Johnson for the head coaching role. And unfortunately for Texas and I, last but not least, the Dallas Cowboys have announced that they are retaining Mike McCarthy at the head coaching position for the 2024 season. He will be coaching on an expiring contract. So a lot of moving pieces here on the coaching side of the equation. Texas, what are your thoughts on retaining Mike McCarthy as we head into 2024?
I'm torn. You know, on one side, we've got 3 straight 12-win seasons, made the playoffs, won a playoff game last year against Tampa. But he wasn't brought in to win in the regular season. The reason we got rid of Garrett, brought in McCarthy, is because he proved it in the Green Bay that he could make it to at least championship round and not win a Super Bowl. And that's what he was supposed to come here to do. I think the big thing is he is on that last year of the contract. That's what they did with Garrett. They let him ride out the last year, and then they didn't bring him back. With I sent you a list of all the contracts the Cowboys have of expired players coming up, like Zach Martin, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dak, if they don't do a restructure. Like it looks like it's going to be one last, let's do it, or we're blowing this thing up. They still might restructure Dak over this offseason, but there are a lot of high-profile players that are on the last year of their deal. So, I mean, I'm torn. This is Dak's statistically his best year. He was MVP performance this year. So if there's some way we can translate that into the playoffs, that'd be great. But, I mean, I don't think it was all on Dak. I mean, honestly, Dan Quinn has not had a good record against the coaching tree of his Atlanta team. Shanahan, and all those that, then McVay and so forth that are part of that tree. He has not done well against those teams. So I think some of that blame falls on him as well.
Do we think that the performance the Cowboys showed against the Packers in that divisional round game hurt Dan Quinn's chances of getting a head coaching position elsewhere? Now that we've seen some of these interviews?
Seattle. Everywhere but Seattle.
And I've actually seen some stuff that there was a big rumor that Chip Kelly could potentially be a package deal with Dan Quinn going to Seattle. Like that was the only way that they would do it, but Chip Kelly and him had to go together, which I found pretty interesting. But
yeah, that's interesting that they would tie those two together. Do they have a ton of history?
I don't think so. I don't think he was ever in Philly with him. I don't think they've been in college together. So
yeah, I don't know where the tie-in would be there. So that's interesting. We'll have to dig more into that.
I think it's more that they want a proven offensive mind to come in with him. I think that was as opposed to him bringing in some random guy himself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Proven. I mean, you saw what happened with the Eagles. They ran a ton of plays per game, but
they won a lot of games with Chip Kelly, though, too. Like I think he just lost the team with his trying to bring a college culture to the NFL and changing the way they practice and in the days of the week and all that stuff. I think that's where he missed the boat. But I mean, he actually had success. I don't think Chip Kelly's bad. And you take him out of a head coach role and put him as just an OC, and I think he might be all right, especially with what they have there. I think it's pretty. They have decent offense.
Yeah, I've been reading a little bit about for some reason they keep pulling the Seahawks into a QB position in their first round pick, depending on where things end up landing from some of those selections. And I keep seeing JJ McCarthy's name land with Seattle for some reason. I don't really know why.
Yeah, that's one of those picks that's going to cost people their jobs. I don't. He's like, to me, you pick him in the third round or later. I don't think maybe fourth round or later. To me, him early is a huge mistake. But I guess depends what kind of offense you're running. He could be serviceable, I guess. I mean, Brock Purdy's serviceable. Yeah, it's.
Yeah,
Brock Purdy had more success at Iowa State than J.J. McCartney as an individual had at Michigan. They had great team success, but it wasn't reliant on him.
True.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you look at the statistics from that national championship game. If you listen to Harbaugh, it's like he had the best performance of all quarterbacks in the history of football, but
yeah,
didn't really land that way. All right. Well, obviously, we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. Yeah. making its second appearance in playoff mode. I like it.
Not time to pick yet. Tell it to calm down.
Tell it to chill out for a second. All right, let's jump into some wild card game recaps here, starting with Houston versus Baltimore. Baltimore Ravens are heading to the AFC Championship with a decisive 34-10 victory over the Houston Texans. Well, the first half proved tight. The Ravens unleashed an offensive juggernaut in the second half, scoring on 4 straight possessions. Justin Tucker's opening field goal set the tone, but Fiburn's response kept the score level by the end of the first quarter. The script flipped in the second, with Lamar Jackson orchestrating a touchdown drive featuring both of his scrambling prowess and a 3-yard strike to Nelson Aguilar. A punt return touchdown by Steven Sims gave the Texans hope, but it was short-lived. Jackson silenced the Houston rally with the 15-yard touchdown run, followed by a pinpoint 15-yard touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely. Baltimore still wasn't done, adding another Jackson rushing touchdown and a Tucker field goal to solidify their commanding lead. While the Texans' heavy blitzing strategy held Baltimore in check early, the Ravens' adjustments were great. Jackson's dual threat brilliance came through, racking up 152 passing yards, 100 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. The ground game proved unstoppable as they ended up with 229 yards as a team on the ground. Despite not forcing numerous turnovers or sacks, the Ravens defense really did suffocate the Texans offense. They limited Houston to a single field goal, excluding the punt return touchdown, showcasing their dominance, particularly against the run. Roquan Smith and Justin Matabuke spearheading the effort with tackles for losses. Ravens' second half offensive explosive paired with their stifling defense proved insurmountable for the Texans. They are now heading to the AFC Championship to face the Kansas City Chiefs. Thoughts on this game? We'll pass it off to Carter first.
Oh, man. I really let recency bias get me last week. My first thought was the Ravens were going to roll. And I see that 9.5 points, and I was like, man, Houston can hang around there. But they're clearly missing another weapon like Tank Dell or someone like that. It was all about the second half adjustments for Baltimore. Houston did well in the first half, shutting down Lamar, but they came out in the second half and rolled, and it was a boat race from there on. Baltimore's defense is pretty tough. Interesting
for sure.
What they do with Kansas City.
Scott, what were your thoughts on the game?
The close first half was actually kind of a surprise. I thought it'd be stretching out by then. It just showed that Texas, with 0 running game, really hurt them. They couldn't get those tough yards. So that I think put them behind, and then Baltimore's total coaching staff just wiped them out the second half. So good for Baltimore, bad for Houston, but look out next year as Houston kind of adjust, get some free agents in there to help them out on that defense, and they might be a rising team next year in the AFC.
Taxis, did you get a chance to watch the game?
Yeah, I just think sometimes you see it coming off of bye week. Teams struggle to get things going first half, and then get their feet under them and go. Ultimately, with that game, the talent and the experience just came across in that second half and just ran away with it. I was actually surprised to see it, 10-10.5, but by the end of it.
Jake, what were your thoughts on the game?
Honestly, I was very surprised at the first half. I expected Baltimore to beat the hell out of them, to be honest. So I was kind of surprised that they kept it that close in the first half. But obviously, they broke their tendency completely in the first half and just blitzed the world. And I don't think Baltimore was really prepared for that. So quick adjustment, got it figured out. Obviously, the kick return was their point, so their offense still did nothing. 19 of 33 for 175 with Stroud. So, that's not fantastic. And their leading rusher had 22 yards on 9 carries. So that's not going to win you too many playoff games on the road. But the Baltimore offense, they are what they are. I think that's going to be the question going into next week. But for the Texans game, it was pretty much what I expected, to be honest, minus a little bit of a closer first half. Clearly, Lamar went in at halftime and gave a pretty fiery speech, I guess, from what they've said, and got them rallied, and that's all they needed.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see CJ Stroud in year 2. He played pretty dominantly for being a rookie quarterback for them to get where they got. So interesting to see how the Texans line up as they head into the offseason. Let's jump into the next game here, Green Bay versus San Francisco. The 49ers are headed back to the NFC Championship game after a nail-biting 24-21 victory over the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round. While things looked bleak for the Niners in the second half, Kyle Shanahan's squad showed some pretty incredible resilience to secure the win. The game was a back-and-forth affair in Santa Clara, but the Packers outplayed the host for most of the game. Quarterback Jordan Love made several impressive throws and led Green Bay to a 21-17 lead with less than 7 minutes remaining. Brock Purdy struggled early on, completing only 23 of his 39 passes for 252 and threw 2 interceptions. However, he did deliver a crucial touchdown pass to George Kittle and eventually led his team on a game-winning drive in the final minutes. 41-yard missed field goal by Packers rookie kicker Anders Carlson proved to be a turning point. The Niners capitalized on the opportunity, marching down the field on a 5-minute, 11-second drive by Purdy. That drive culminated in a 2-yard touchdown run by Christian McCaffrey with just 1 minute and 7 seconds remaining. Green Bay had a chance to respond, but Love's final drive fell short. He started well, completing 2 passes for 11 yards and a first down. However, under pressure on the following play, he threw a costly interception to Dre Greenlaw, effectively ending the game. Despite the heartbreaking loss for the Packers, there are definitely positive signs here. Love displayed some pretty impressive talent as he went throughout the season, and the future looks pretty bright for him. For the 49ers, the win may raise some questions about Purdy's ability to lead them to a Super Bowl win. While he showed flashes of brilliance, his inconsistencies did raise some concerns. Nevertheless, Purdy gets to add another playoff win to his resume, and the Niners will advance to their 4th conference championship game in 5 seasons and host Detroit on Sunday. Thoughts on the game here? Jake, we'll start with you.
I think the crushing blow to the Packers was kind of early in the game. It was when Savage dropped that pick 6. That would have been a huge swing in the game. They would have been up 2 possession early. They were riding Jones. Jones was killing them. I think that was the Packers' mistake, honestly, too. I don't know why they went away from him. That really swung the game when they started trying to throw the ball. Love played all right, but he wasn't that fantastic either. He was what he needed to be, but he could have been better. Jones was the key there, though, and I'm not sure what LaFleur was doing. That was my biggest takeaway from the game, was other than that dropped pick 6 in the first half, going away from Jones, I think, is what really changed the game. San Francisco honestly wasn't that impressive in the game. I think a lot of people thought going into that game it was kind of going to be the same of what Baltimore did to Houston, and we had a battle in this game. It went down to the very end. So overall, I think the takeaway is Well, one, Deebo Samuel's a huge loss to the team. So we'll see if he's back this weekend because obviously I'm praying he's not. But that's a huge deal to that offense. But I just think in the end, the Packers really cost themselves this game. I think they could have won it.
Scott, what were your thoughts?
Well, I definitely think the Packers could have won it. They've gone from Favre to excuse me, on three quarterbacks in a row that they've hit on their draft. So good luck with them. Love San Francisco is just a more talented team, even after they lost Deebo Samuels. And I think the driving rainstorm they played in. If you watch the shots of the crowd, we could see the storm coming down. How much did that affect accuracy? Passing. It just to play with a ball that wet for the entire game. Really affected. I would say both quarterbacks. But San Francisco just had the more talented team, which won out in the end. And looking forward to the NFC Championship. It's going to be a good game, I think.
Texas?
Yeah, I think the Deebo Samuel injury is huge. They look like almost two different teams with and without him. But one thing I just want to point out, like in this age of throwing the football and rushing the passer, the linebacker play in these two games we've talked about has almost been a difference maker. Like the Roquan Smith, and then with Fred Warner, like we don't give enough props to linebackers in these for these teams. I don't feel, but no, it did feel like Green Bay's game to lose for a long while there, but yeah, we'll see. Kicking woes just seem to rear their head in playoff games as of late, and having an accurate kicker, like you talk about it all season long, but those you still make the playoffs with or without that. But then once you get here, it's like what 3-point game, and so forth, and it's just like you have to be good on all three levels, and you miss a field goal to tie it up in the Kansas City Buffalo game we'll talk about, and then this one to lose the game. Like it's the little things through these playoffs.
100%. Carter?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch the first half as closely as I wanted to. I was at the poker table at the casino, and the second half, when Green Bay returned that kickoff, the pop from the sports book was crazy. I mean, it was a lot of this was in Michigan, so there was a lot of Lions fans. I think they were rooting for the Packers to win this.
Yeah.
And I thought they had him on the ropes there. The way Purdy had been playing with that rain, he just couldn't get it going. But that last drive, when he had to have it, he went 6 of 7 for I think 47 yards, mainly to Ayuk, and then McCaffrey capped it off there at the end. This Green Bay team, very impressive, youngest team in the NFL. They're going to be a problem, and I think they did hit on another quarterback. It seems like.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Green Bay as they move forward with Love. I think there were some questions around there to start the season, especially around the middle of the season, but I think he's pretty much solidified his role as the QB for Green Bay moving forward. All right, let's jump into the next one here. The Detroit Lions have roared their way into the NFC Championship game after a thrilling 31-23 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday afternoon. This game was a back-and-forth battle filled with a lot of offensive fireworks and clutch defensive plays, leaving fans at Ford Field on the edge of their seats for pretty much the entire game. The Lions opened the scoring with a 23-yard field goal by Michael Badgley, but the Buccaneers quickly responded with their own 43-yard field goal from Chase McLaughlin. Detroit's Josh Reynolds found the end zone first with a 9-yard touchdown grab. However, a late 2-minute drive by Tampa Bay, capped by a Baker Mayfield 2-yard touchdown pass to tight end Cade Otton, even the score at 10-10 at halftime. The second half was a roller coaster. Lions running back Craig Reynolds powered through for a touchdown on a 4th and 1 near the end of the third quarter. The Bucs countered with a 12-yard touchdown pass from Mayfield to Rachaad White, keeping the score tight. Then rookie sensation Jahmyr Gibbs ignited the crowd with a 31-yard touchdown run for Detroit, followed by Jared Goff's 9-yard touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown, building a 2-score lead for the Lions. Tampa Bay did not back down, though. Mayfield connected with Mike Evans for a 16-yard touchdown, pulling the Bucs within 8 points. That lead could have been slightly narrowed, but a questionable call by Todd Bowles to go for 2 was a miss and forced Tampa Bay into a situation that required a 2-point conversion if they did score again and tried to tie the game. It ended up not mattering, though, as the Lions defense held firm to secure the victory. Both quarterbacks had really impressive performances. Baker Mayfield threw for 349, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, relying heavily on veteran wideout Mike Evans, who racked up 7 receptions for 142 yards and a touchdown. Jared Goff countered by going 30 for 43 for 287, 2 touchdowns and 0 picks, making crucial plays when needed. Offensive lineman Frank Ragnow, battling through an injury, deserves special mention here for his crucial block on that 4th and goal touchdown run by Craig Reynolds. Detroit's defense also stepped up in a big way. While Aiden Hutchinson's sack was expected, the pressure generated by the Lions defensive backs was really a game changer. Workman, you're going to have to help me out here on the name. Safety Iffy.
Just call him Iffy. Yeah.
Iffy. There we go. Iffy had a sack and a half. Rookie Brian Branch added another. The relentless pressure forced Mayfield into mistakes and contributed significantly to the Lions' victory. Possibly the biggest highlight for the Lions, though, was the performance of rookie Jahmyr Gibbs. Detroit took a lot of flack for spending the 12th overall pick on a running back, but Gibbs has delivered exactly what this Detroit team needed to take the next step towards the Super Bowl. His 31-yard touchdown run wasn't just a highlight reel play, but a pivotal moment that broke the game open and gave the Lions a much-needed 2-score cushion and got the crowd into a frenzy. The Lions now head to San Francisco to face the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship. Thoughts on the game, and I will hand it off to Mr. Workman here.
Great game. I mean, it's about what we expected. We knew it wasn't going to be a blowout. We knew it was going to be close. I mean, I said last week, our secondary versus their passing game was going to be the question. I'm actually kind of surprised they waited so long to go to Mike Evans. Like, they really, until that last drive of the first half, they did nothing. Like, they didn't do anything to him. And I think that was our weakness going into it. So I was very surprised they didn't try to abuse that a little earlier. But I mean, we've played 2 playoff games now with 0 turnovers. I think that's about as great as you can ask for, both on our home field. So, I mean, you're in our home field, not turning the ball over, being pretty efficient. I mean, that's really all we can ask for so far. Gibbs, I think anyone that doubted that pick has probably shut their mouth at this point. I mean, he's unbelievable. He's so fast, catches the ball well. He does everything we need him to do. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best receivers in the NFL. Like, he truly is unguardable. Like, situation does not matter. We're going to him. No one stops it. Defense, obviously, CJ getting the pick early on was huge. He talked shit to Baker Mayfield all week. One of the things that weren't really shown on the broadcast, but it was all over Twitter, was when he picked it off, when Baker got to the sideline, he actually flipped the ball to him, which I liked, because 2 guys that like to talk shit there. Iffy and Brian Branch coming off the edge with the sacks. We've done that all year, and Tampa clearly was not prepared for that. We blindsided Baker twice. I was actually surprised he held onto the ball on a lot of those. Trying to think of who else came back with huge. Even Aleem McNeil, I mean, he's back in limited time, just came back from injury. He's still a force up the middle. I thought Houston was going to be back this week. He practiced all week. We held him out, but he's going to be a go this week, which is huge. So our defense is going to be at full 100% this week. Jonah Jackson, sucks that he got hurt. He's out. I think Ragnow is going to play again, though, which for the injuries that he has, that's a tough dude. But you mentioned that, talking about it. Overall, though, really, what can you say? It was a great game. Baker played very well, minus that pick at the very end. I'm not really sure the decision there. And then I actually noticed this watching the game. It kind of became a story after the game, but I was like, what the hell are we doing? Why is Jared Goff snapping the ball so early and taking these knees? They still had a timeout left. Tampa had a timeout. They could have forced us to kick. The Money Badger's not that great. They could have forced us to kick a very long field goal in a 1-possession game still with like 38 seconds left. And Bulls didn't call the timeout. They just went and shook hands. And then in the post-game press conference, they asked him, and he was like, well, they would have just made the field goal. I would have fired him that night. If I was the GM of the Bucks, I would have fired Todd Bowles that night for that reasoning. That's god awful. And Texas just talked about it earlier. Like, field goal kicking in the playoffs is huge. The Money Badger is not great from distance. He hasn't been this year at all. You force us to kick a 50-some yarder, we miss. You've got 38 seconds with Mike Evans, and it's a 1-possession game. And I think that was kind of a forgotten story. Like, people just kind of dismissed that like it was nothing. Like, when Bulls took his headset off and went to shake hands, I was like, what is going on right now? Like, I was already in shock to begin with, because the Lions are a game away from the Super Bowl now. But it was a pretty big story that that they just let it end. I was pretty shocked by that. But
well, that's the second decision that he made that game that I was like, what the hell? Like, I still don't understand why they went for 2 after that touchdown.
No, I don't disagree with that. I'm a big proponent of that, actually. I like the go for 2 there because statistically it does show that you're going to get one of the 2-point conversions. And if you get the first one, then you've got a chance to go win the game. So that's actually become the Steelers have done that for quite a few years, actually. They've been the team that I feel like has done it the longest, but now he got fired. But Staley that's something he would do. It's a lot of the analytics stuff that's came into the game, but Steelers have been doing that for quite a while. I don't disagree with that decision, especially on the road and what the environment was.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it doesn't make any sense that he was that aggressive to start that, and then we get on the other side of that with 38 seconds left or whatever it was, and then he decides to not be aggressive at all. Like
that's where it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand the approach there. Scott, what were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I think number one, Tampa Bay has found their quarterback of the future. I don't know where he ranks in the NFL. At least he's in the top half. But I think that they've found a home with each other. Todd Bowles, great defensive coordinator, but as a head coach, I question his judgment with a couple of those at the end. And just in general, I'm just not impressed, but they beat up on a really awful NFC South to get into the playoffs, and then got Philadelphia, who imploded over the end of the season. So, the luck of the Irish kind of rained down upon them. But, I would not bring back Todd Bowles. I think that should be another opening here pretty quick. I enjoyed the game. I thought the Lions, the atmosphere, the TV commentators were talking about how it was just shaking the building. I generally don't like being around 80,000 of my nearest and dearest closest friends, but I think I would have enjoyed going and feeling that the building shake like that. The offense, they've got players and difference makers, at every level: wide receiver, tight end, running back. Jared Goff has done an excellent job this year. Just elevating his game this late in his career. That doesn't happen very often, but he's done it. And that defense, it's getting healthy. Everybody will be back next week for the championship game. So good for Lions. It's been so long for them. I like seeing these teams that haven't been there forever and a day play well, do well, and of course when it's not the Colts are playing. But other than that, I thought the Lions just outplayed them at the end.
You can save all that Notre Dame and Colts talk for the second podcast. Carter, what were your thoughts on the game?
Man, it was a good game. About what I thought it was going to come down to, one possession there. I put a live bet on Tampa Bay. I think it was 3-10 right before half. Next play, they go deep to Mike Evans. I'm like, here we go. Finally going to their playmaker. But I think it just came down to turnovers in the end. Jared Goff threw a terrible ball in the end zone there that should have been maybe returned for a touchdown.
Definitely should have been picked.
Yeah, definitely would have been picked or should have been. But Detroit made the plays at the end of the day. It's just a team. I don't know how you don't love them. They take over the persona of their head coach, Frank Ragnow, out there playing hurt, and he's just out there biting ankles and pushing Vita Vea into the end zone. Like, I'd love to see it. Definitely. I think you guys are a little off on Bulls. They overachieved this year. That no one had him going to the playoffs to get a win. He's definitely more of a defensive guy. They need to keep what's the offensive coordinator's name? Canellas. I know he's getting some head coaching interviews out there. So he needs to stay. And Mike Evans is a free agent, so they'll have to probably tag him or do something. But end of the day, I like this Lions team and anxious to see how they do this week.
I did see that it may be a rumor, but it looks like Mike Evans is open to returning to Tampa Bay. So for what that's worth, with them retaining Mayfield. Taxus, what were your thoughts on the game?
Like you guys said, pretty much everything was a great game. And to be honest, going into the playoffs, I didn't really give Tampa that much of a shot when coming to the NFC South. Like, it was one of those, I thought they lose to the Eagles, to be honest. And then didn't give them any chance here in my head, but they proved me wrong, and it's going to be kind of fun to see if they retain Baker and Evans and everything like that, and see what that looks like next year. But congratulations, Workman, for that. I don't know how this feels since they're, when I first started becoming a Cowboy fan way back in the 90s. So congratulations to that. Do have one question for you. Does this make Jared Goff a better overall Lions quarterback than Matthew Stafford?
No, not yet.
Quickest answer ever.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But
if he wins the Super Bowl.
So I don't even know if I could agree with that. But I mean, obviously, if he does that, he's going to be a Detroit.
He'll be a Detroit god.
He'll be the mayor. He'll have statues on every street. He'll have. I mean, this. But yeah, I think if in big picture overall, though, what Stafford did for the longevity is still better. But it's hard to say because it's such a different time span and different teams. Like if Stafford would ever have a team anywhere near what this team is, I mean, my God, it would have been crazy. Stafford never had an O-line or a running back that could get 30 yards a game. So there's so many differences there that's the thing. But what I will say, though, is I've always said that the trade has always favored the Rams because they got the Super Bowl. If the Lions were to win a Super Bowl, I will say that trade is now even.
That's fair. Stafford also did not have the defense that Detroit has right now either. I mean, he was winning games 42-38. That's how he was getting W's.
Stafford had Calvin Johnson. That's the only difference. That's all he had.
Yeah.
I mean, and in death every game.
Yeah, he's a tough son of a gun. We talk about that quite a bit. All right, let's jump into this last game from last week here. What is probably the NFL's biggest modern rivalry delivered another chapter of drama as the Kansas City Chiefs edged out the Buffalo Bills 27-24 in a playoff epic on Sunday night as Pat Mahomes played his first road playoff game in his career. Buffalo opened with a pretty methodical drive, taking the lead on a Tyler Bass field goal to start. KC countered with a 47-yarder from Harrison Butker, leaving it 3-3 after the first. Josh Allen answered back to start the second by igniting the Bills with a touchdown on a scramble, but the Chiefs answered right back with a touchdown and a field goal, taking it to 13-10 with just over 3 minutes left in the half. The Bill squad would not let that momentum swing last for very long as a last-minute drive by Buffalo before the half resulted in another Josh Allen touchdown run, bringing the score 17-13 Buffalo at the half. KC came back out at half and immediately answered back with the second touchdown pass from Mahomes to Travis Kelce, making it 2017. Buffalo answered yet again late in the third with the 14-yard touchdown from Allen to Khalil Shakir to bring the score to 24-20 Buffalo. KC then drove down the field, and as they opened the fourth quarter, Isaiah Pacheco scored on a 4-yard touchdown run to take the score to 27-24 KC. Early in the fourth quarter, a potential momentum swing occurred when the Chiefs receiver Mecole Hardman fumbled near the pylon. The play, which was initially ruled a touchdown, was overturned on review, deeming it a fumble out of bounds, resulting in a touchback and ball possession for Buffalo. This controversial touchback rule is likely to face some scrutiny by the competition committee in the offseason. Now, it has had an impact on multiple games throughout the season. In the closing minutes of the game, Buffalo had an opportunity to tie it up with under 2 minutes remaining. However, in haunting shades of Scott Norwood, Tyler Bass pulled a 44-yard field goal wide right, handing the ball back to the Chiefs with limited time remaining. All Mahomes and company had to do was run out the clock, and with 2 big runs by Pacheco, sealed the deal. That is where the score ended, with Kansas City getting yet another W over rival Buffalo, 27-24. This marked Mahomes' first ever road game in the playoffs, and the clash remained a nail-biter pretty much throughout. Mahomes posted a respectable 215 yards through the air and finished with 2 touchdowns, as well as several snowball dodges as he left the field, while Josh Allen countered with 186 yards and a touchdown pass, adding 72 rushing yards and 2 more scores on the ground. Josh Allen has racked up a league-high 51 total touchdowns this season, which is leading the league, including the playoffs. After the game, Andy Reid gave credit to Chiefs GM Brett Veach, who has managed to find some tremendous talent in young defensive players like Jamari Conner, L'Jarius Sneed, Joshua Williams, and Jalen Watson. The Chiefs have now held the league's number 2 and number 6 scoring offenses in Miami and Buffalo to a grand total of 7 second-half points this postseason. A nod to the incredible defense that Kansas City has been playing down the stretch, and something that Baltimore is going to need to pay attention to as they enter the AFC Championship. With Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen splitting their first 6 duels, the Chiefs now hold a dominant 3-1 edge over the Bills in the postseason, stretching back to 2021. The Chiefs find their footing on offense at the right time and are now heading to Baltimore for their 6th straight AFC championship and yet another opportunity to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Carter, what were your thoughts on the game?
Man, another all-time good game between these guys. The new Manning and Brady rivalry is here. Maybe Joe Burrow has something to say to that if he ever gets healthy, but it was a good game. I think both quarterbacks played amazing. I mean, Josh Allen just doesn't have any help at the end of the day. I think, like Andy Reid said, KC just has more guys. Stephon Diggs, he's been a zero pretty much all postseason. He dropped that long ball. And I don't know where Buffalo goes from here. They haven't drafted a wide receiver in the top 4 rounds since Josh Allen's been there. The only help they've really given him is Kincaid. Maybe they should have just had him run it every time. I don't know what the answer is for Buffalo. With that rule change, I don't know how you change it, but I hate that they want to change it.
They're not going to.
I heard someone say if they fumble, they go back. It's third down. They go third from the 20.
It's not going to happen.
The only thing that'd be okay.
They're not changing anything. There's no way to change that rule.
Well,
they're not going to change it.
Twitter says they're changing it. So
no, they're not going to change it. They're supposed to have talks of changing it. But there's no way they're changing it.
Yep, I agree. But yeah, just another all-time good game.
How dare you bring
that up? My only game I got right of the week, so at least I saw something good there.
Scott, what were your thoughts on the game?
I thought it was a really good game because Buffalo had every chance they had to actually win it. You know, they had a false start. Diggs, that ball went right through his hands. You know, when they had a chance to make the plays, they just didn't. You know, missed field goal, drop passes. Yeah, it was there for the taking. They just didn't rise to the challenge. And Kansas City looked like the more experienced, veteran, calm team, I would say. You know, they made the plays where Buffalo just didn't. And, you know, like you said, with Diggs not having any help, that really made a difference. They didn't have anybody to go to when somebody else was Diggs double covered. I think that really hurt them. Their defense didn't play bad, but after they missed the field goal, they just, they packed it up and they were already in the locker room. They could feel it. So I was kind of disappointed with that part of it, but overall it was a really good game.
Texas?
Yeah, I could watch these two teams play every week, to be honest. Just set up a weekly Kansas City Buffalo game, just alternate sites. No, it's just two of the best quarterbacks in the league just going at it. And it's great to see, like you're saying, Manning and Brady. It does feel kind of like that when these two get on the field. But no, it was a great game. Like you said, just Buffalo needs a little more firepower. I mean, Kansas City felt like that most of the year, but Kelsey came alive again finally, and their defense is doing something else right now. I'm very surprised because I really didn't think they had much going into the playoffs with their defense. I mean, they were good, but not great. But I just happy to see for Chiefs fans, but it's hard to bet against Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. I did, but it's hard to.
Yeah, for sure. Jake?
Yeah, not really much other than what everyone else has already said. I do find it interesting, though, what Buffalo's going to have to do some things in the offseason. They've got a lot of free agents coming up. Their offense is awful. Like, I mean, yeah, Josh Allen's all right, but that's it. They've got to figure something out. I know they went on a run in the season. I was not big on this team this year. They never impressed me once this year. I don't know. This team, I don't get the hype behind. They're not that good. Like, I think Josh Allen disguises how bad they really are. I think we're going to find that out next year if we get a healthy Rodgers and a healthy Jets team. Obviously, the Dolphins are going to be back, and I think they're going to be fine. You never know what New England's going to look like with their they might have a new quarterback. Obviously, they're going to have a whole new system, maybe a competent offensive coordinator for the first time. So the Bills finishing in fourth, just hypothetically speaking right now, wouldn't surprise me next year. I mean, I honestly thought it was a possibility this year. So The fact they ended up winning the division, yeah, it's big. They went on a hell of a run in the year, but I still don't think this team is very good. Questionable decision in the game to me was that DeMar Hamlin fake punt. That was very interesting in the situation. And then that also is what led to the Hardman fumble. So eventually it didn't cost them too much. And then the field goal looked like in Madden when you just hit the controller wrong. It just shot straight to the right. So, I mean, that thing never had a chance. But overall, Chiefs win. Story continues with them. So we'll see what happens this week.
I did see that
punt just seemed desperate.
Go ahead, Scott.
That fake punt just seemed desperate. Like they could see the writing on the wall. That they were throwing what out there that they could throw out there. But it just seemed really desperate even at the time.
Yeah, and they said they had called it from the sideline, too. It wasn't an audible. The Chiefs only had 10 guys on the field, and they still weren't even close. So it was, I don't know, it seemed very bad.
One positive note that came out of Buffalo, I know that Tyler Bass had deactivated his Twitter account shortly after the game because he was getting death threats. Bills Mafia has since donated more than $50,000 to his local charity since then. So he's already feeling a little bit of love in Buffalo. But yeah, that was a little heartbreaking on their end after their history with field goals and big situations. So yeah, well, that's the recap we have for last week's game. So let's move right into it here and talk conference championship games. So our conference championship Sunday kicks off with the AFC title game as the 3 seed Kansas City Chiefs head to the home of crab cakes and football to face off against the 1 seed Baltimore Ravens, 3 p.m. at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, airing on CBS and Paramount Plus. Baltimore gets a chance to host their first ever AFC championship game and are on their 11th playoff push in 16 years under head coach John Harbaugh. The Chiefs, meanwhile, have advanced to their 6th straight conference title game and are looking to make it their 4th Super Bowl bid in the last 6 seasons. Lamar Jackson versus Pat Mahomes should be one for the record books. Baltimore comes into this game favored by 3.5. Taxis, we'll start with you.
I know I just said it's hard to bet against Mahomes and Reed, but I am going to go with Baltimore. I do think that they are the better team. I think their defense can hold this team down a little bit. But funny little anecdote, I don't know if you remember, Reese, but when the Ravens hired Harbaugh, they initially wanted Jason Garrett because he was the OC of the Cowboys. But Jerry Jones threw him so much money, he stuck around. So we could have had Jason Garrett coaching Baltimore for I don't know how many years. But no, I'm going to go
3.
with Baltimore. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, 1 contract. Coach Clapp. Good Lord. Scott, who's your pick?
I was going back and forth on this one. Betting against Pat Mahomes is fool's money, but I think I'm going to go down that path. I'm going to go Baltimore on this one. I just think they're better on both sides of the ball, and they seem to be on a magic roll right now. So let's go Baltimore.
Carter?
3 in a row. I'm with the guys. I think of the totality of the season, Baltimore shows they're the better team. I think they've got some answers. My boy Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame is going to be on Kelsey. So at least they got an answer for that. And then so who else is going to step for Kansas City? Is it going to be Rashee Rice, who was kind of doing nothing this week against Buffalo? Give me Lamar Jackson and the Ravens up by a touchdown.
Jake?
Yes, these are 2 teams I've been huge on all year. Chiefs obviously were my preseason Super Bowl pick. Ravens, I had winning the division, and Lamar is MVP. So this is a tough one. I do like the Baltimore's at home, but I think the Chiefs' defense has just proven too much. I like the Chiefs' defense in this one. I think they can keep Baltimore in check. Weather's supposed to be decent, so I'll always take the offensive mind of Andy Reid against any defense. So I'm taking the Chiefs plus the points, and I think I'm taking them outright win also.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be TNT host versus the pool here. I'm taking Kansas City as well. I don't know that they're going to win, but I do think that they can at least keep this within 3. We're looking at 2 extremely talented squads on both sides of the ball. But I think that Andy Reid being the difference maker here in this Kansas City defense is a little bit different than what Baltimore's seen the past few weeks. So I am going to take Kansas City plus the points. Our NFC Championship matchup will be in the Bay Area as the 3-seed Detroit Lions travel from frozen Detroit to sunny California to match up against the 1-seed San Francisco 49ers, 6:30 at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, airing on Fox. It's lead dog versus underdog in this one, as the 49ers are playing in their 4th conference title game in 5 years, while the Lions are playing in their first NFC Championship game since 1991, a year when Barry Sanders was in his 3rd season, and the Lions eventually lost to an extremely tough Washington Redskins squad. Both of these teams are very well balanced on both sides of the ball, entering the game as the 2 and 3 ranked offenses in the league, respectively. Can Detroit leverage some of the vulnerabilities the Packers exposed last week to get the win and advance to their first ever Super Bowl? San Francisco is favored by 7. Scott, I'll go with you first.
I think Detroit can look and see what Packers did to San Francisco last week. And they've got the talent to kind of follow that game plan. I really like what they did. Deebo Sanders, is he in? Is he out? I haven't heard one way or another yet. Their offense is just completely different when he's on the field versus when he's not. So I'm going to go with Detroit and the points on this.
Texas.
I'm going to go with the Aaron Rodgers. NFL has already been scripted. The colors of the Super Bowl are Baltimore and San Francisco. So I'm going to go with San Francisco to win, but Detroit's going to cover that 7.
Carter?
So this comes down to, I think, the Deebo question for me. Purdy's not going to play as bad as he did last week. It doesn't look like there's going to be rain. And as of now, I think Deebo's going to play. It says probably a grade 1 AC joint. So give me the 49ers, but I hope I'm wrong and Detroit goes to the Super Bowl.
Jake?
So I was looking at the Niners schedule. I was just trying to figure out what could be done to this team other than last week with the Packers. They lost at home. Their only home loss was to the Bengals earlier this year. I think it was week 8. I went back and watched that game just because I wanted to see what exactly Cincinnati did that was so well. Obviously, they did have Burrow in that game, so that helps for Cincinnati's sake. They were able to move the ball on the ground pretty well. Passing, I mean, Jamar Chase had 10 for 100 and a touchdown, which I feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown can mirror that. I feel like our running game is better than the Bengals running game. Just overall, what I watched, I saw the scheme and I saw what could be done to this team. And I think we can replicate that. And our defense is better to me than Cincinnati's, especially in that game. I mean, Purdy did throw 2 picks in that game, which is a key that the turnover, we have to, if we can go 3 games in a row in the playoffs with no turnovers, especially a road game in the NFC Championship, that's going to be huge, obviously. But I think we've got to get at least 1 turnover, if not 2. Purdy showed last week, like I said, if Savage would have got that pick 6, I think that changes that whole game and Green Bay wins that game. I think that's just the thing that we have to overcome. We've got to get that turnover. I like the Lions to cover. Clearly, I think 7's way too many. If we lose, I think it's a 3 or 4 point loss. But it's going to be a good game. I don't think it's a blowout or anything like that. I think it's what we're going to get to end the Sunday night after probably a great Baltimore KC game too. So I think Sunday's looking 2 great games. And got it about 9:45 Sunday night could be one of the craziest moments of my life. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think all of us to some extent are at least rooting for Detroit for you, man. Looking at that Bengals Niners game, Joe Mixon had 16 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. I think Jahmyr Gibbs can very easily replicate that. Then you look at what Jamar Chase did, 10 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown can easily replicate that. The efficiency of Joe Burrow is the one thing that could potentially be an issue because I don't think Jared Goff has played as well on the road as he has at home this year. Burrow went 28 for 32 for 283 and 3 touchdowns in that game. That's if Jared Goff manages to do that on the road, that's going to be extremely impressive. That said, I'm going to eat him up Lions here plus the points. I think Green Bay exposed some weaknesses on this Niners defense, particularly in the passing game. If MCDC can draw up some pressure on Purdy, Detroit should be able to convert a couple of those mistakes into turnovers, hopefully turn that into points. So I'm rolling with Detroit here on their way to their first ever Super Bowl and potentially the last couple of weeks of Jake's life if this team goes all the way and wins the whole thing. I'm going to be doing a welfare check here on February 12th.
You might have to do it Sunday night. I don't.
Yeah, I was doing it on last Sunday, but I wasn't getting a response. I was real close to picking up the phone and calling Kristen, but it's like, yeah, he's okay. He's okay. All right, guys, that is it for our picks. We are very, very rapidly getting to the end of the season here. So obviously, episode next week will be kind of light. We'll focus pretty much all of our attention on any head coaching news that happens, as well as previewing the Super Bowl game to an extent. We'll probably do some focusing on NFL drafts, some free agency stuff, things like that, to just kind of fill the time there. And then when we come back on the next week, will be our Super Bowl picks. So that is it for Conference Championship weekend. For fine citizen Jake Workman and our crew here that has been kind enough to join us over these last few shows. This is Reese Downing for TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL Edition, Conference Championship weekend, and we will see you guys next week.
See you, everyone.
Later.
Later.